actually than gentlemen, but it's really fantastic to have you here today. So thank you for joining me. I really appreciate that. So it was really interesting to see the amount of response to the Setting Goals for 2019 webinar that I'm running today. And why I'm saying it was quite astounding really was because there were about probably just under 70 people on this webinar, which I think says a lot about possibly people's goals and goal setting and why we tend to struggle with goal setting. And I guess for so many of us, what we do is that we decide that at the end of the year, we're definitely going to have these goals and we're definitely going to, make sure that we follow these goals at the end of the year and we're going to move forward to whatever those goals are. And yet one of the really interesting things is how quickly we get disillusioned. And we often, and I think I'm also probably in this particular area where we have this goal, we start off so energized in the new year, and then what happens is kind of sort of end of February, beginning of March, we might fall off the wagon or we don't follow through with what we say we will do. And then quite often what we do is we just get absolutely frustrated with ourselves and then we give it all away. What I really want to talk about this morning is, would you like to be in a situation where you learn what goals you need to move forward, to crack the secret of sticking to your plans no matter what? And I mean, even though that's such an interesting thing to think about, there are ways that we can actually be more, I suppose, determined to actually following our goals and sticking with our goals. And one of the things I'm going to talk about this morning is what's called intrinsic motivation and how it affects each and every one of us. And one of the things I'll say about intrinsic motivation is that, we can have the best coaches, the best guides, the best partners, the best husbands, wives, whatever that we want to do or have. But at the end of the day, and I think it's a really important point around motivation at the end of the day has to come from within. And if it doesn't come from within, then no matter what anybody does, you can't really motivate other people. And that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit later on when I talk about intrinsic motivation. Learn the things that successful people do when setting their goals for the next year. I think it was absolutely staggering when I was talking about, advertising this webinar, that 92% of people don't achieve the goals that they want to. So it's really intriguing and curious for me as to why. What is it that those 8% of people actually do that makes them stick to their goals and achieve them? And that's all obviously what we want to learn today so that we can stick with it. And I think the problem is that many of us start the year invigorated and energized and, we're going to get these things done. We're going to lose the weight. We're going to get the new career. We're going to give up the smoking. We're going to get fit, whatever it might be that your goals are. But then slowly, somehow, our mojo slips away as life unfolds. We get busy with this. We get busy with that. And I think ultimately what often happens is that our goals sort of take the second seat. They're not in the driver's seat anymore. And, what and where and why and how can we actually resolve this issue? And even myself, for example, there's many times in my life where I've started something and think, it's 2016, 17, 18, and I'm going to try this, I'm going to get it done. And yet by sort of March, it kind of folds away. So I'm really interested in this as a psychologist. Why does that happen? What is it that makes us lose the motivation that we're desperately needing to achieve the things that we really want to achieve? And maybe it's time to look at how we set goals and what we want to achieve, through a new set of eyes. Are you one of those people who set goals and stick to them? I'm presuming not, because if you were, you wouldn't be on the webinar, right? Or are you perhaps one of the 92 who may set their goals but don't stick to them? And certainly I've been in there in my life and can quite capably go back there at times. Do you get frustrated with yourself thinking, well, here I go again, another year older, and still I struggle with the smoking, the weight, the fitness, the new career, the new partner, whatever it may be. And I think one of the things about not being able to achieve our goals, it's so frustrating. And there are times that ultimately we, not only get frustrated, but we also then have the feelings of kind of despair. There I go again. Oh my gosh, what's the point? And I think that's a really key thing. Well, what's the point? I set these goals and nothing really changes. So one of the things I will offer at the end of this webinar is you have a chat with me one-on-one. It's no charge, no cost to you, but just give you the opportunity if you would like to. So some of you I have met before, but there's a lot of you on the line whom I have not had the opportunity. So just a little bit about me without getting into too much boring detail. I've been working with women for many, many years. I own a business called Pure Magic International Business Solutions, And we travel 3 different continents, essentially doing leadership development, team development, and coaching. I have a very, very intrinsic fascination with women. I've been coaching and working with women for almost 30 years. And when I was working as a younger person, I did a lot of work with families and marriages. I write articles, I write books, I speak at about 20 conferences a year. I do lots of coaching. Won a couple of awards along the way, but having to say that the awards that I've actually won have been my team and I, not me on my own. Do lots of keynote speaking. And really my fascination with women is to help women lead the lives I believe that women are born to lead, free from fear and limiting beliefs that they'll never get to where they want to go. And of course, if you then put that against the backdrop of gender inequality, the Me Too movement, I have really 2 great passions in my life. One is to increase the leadership capacity in the world, because the world ain't doing so well right now. But the other thing is to really help women of all ages thrive and become the most wonderful women that they are anyway, but sometimes don't feel that they are. So I've been working with women, working with leaders, working with a lot of people over many years. The Empowering Women to Thrive really is a program that I wrote a while ago. It comes initially from my work with women. And initially came out of the domestic violence space. I'm well known in the DV space, sadly. I have a long history in working domestic violence, but I'm all about helping women at all ages and levels, as I said, thrive. The program called Empowering Women to Thrive is really it's an online women's program, just to give you a bit of context as to what I'm talking to you about today. And it's really for women around the world. We've got about 4,000 women on the program. It was launched in June. And then we run a program called Empowering Women to Thrive at Work, which is 12 stages. We run it a lot in construction, for example, law, run it internationally, and also run it in community sector. We run women's retreats and coaching, and of course we run the monthly webinars. So lots of stuff we do is all about helping women essentially thrive. So if you have then a look at this particular, staggering statistic, 92% of people who set their New Year's goals never achieve them. So how can we do what the other 8% do to give us a better chance of success? And just a word of sort of inclusion for the men on the line. I see that there are a couple of men who have joined us. I just want to say that this particular webinar, even though it's talking to women, you're very welcome to join us. And even though I'm saying, how can women survive or how can women do things better, I'm really aiming it at everybody and both genders, obviously. So if 92% of us don't do this well, what is it that the 8% do that we need to do better in the future to give us a better chance of success? And I think that's really what it is about goal setting and what are we doing today with regards to goal setting. And I think firstly, what are the benefits of goal setting? So when we talk about the benefits of goal setting, a lot of people don't really think further than, well, I want to lose weight. So the benefit is I won't be as large, or I want to be better at time management. The benefit is that I'll be better at managing my time. But actually the benefits of goal setting are much broader and more vast than that. Research basically says that people who have goals and write them down, note write them down as opposed to have them, write them down tend to be healthier, they tend to be wealthier, they tend to have a heightened sense of happiness, they feel more in control of their lives, they have increased feelings of empowerment, and they tend to live longer than those who don't. And this research is actually quite staggering in that I hope it actually makes you think more broadly around, wow, I actually might have goals in my mind and I actually might have not written them down. But if I do, there are so many, significantly statistical advantages to goal setting and writing goals down. By the way, just to add something, I think at this stage is that if you have a goal that is not written down, so they say, that goal is not a goal, it's merely a dream. In order to turn a thought into a goal, it has to be specific. I'm sure most of you or some of you would know about the SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So, for example, every goal that you have has to have the specifics. You've got to be able to say, yes, I've achieved it. It's got to be something you can do realistically to fit into your life, and it's got to be done within a particular time frame. So this particular webinar is not about showing you what the SMART goals are, but if you don't know what they are, what I would really encourage you to do when the webinar is over is to go onto the internet and have a look at them. Because when you design action plans around the goals that you want, it's important that you stick with the SMART formula, and it's all over the internet. And many of the organizations that we work in, we actually take SMART goals and the formula, the template with us. And that's how we teach teams and organizations to make sure that whatever they're doing is, as I said, measured and tracked, et cetera, et cetera. So I think those are quite staggering things to realize, that goals are not just nice things to have, that there's substantiated evidence that goals actually bring a lot of really good things to our lives. So here's the thing, the problem number one is that we might have a particular goal, but we don't actually work out a plan. And as I've just explained to you, the problem with that is that then it's just a dream, because we're not following a formula that's going to take us to achieving what it is that we want to achieve, whether it's in our career or whether it's in our personal lives. So it's about having a plan. We recognize things we want to change in our lives. As I explained earlier, we say to ourselves over and over again, this year it's going to be different. This year things are going to be different in my life. And no matter what, I'm going to make sure that I achieve what it is that I want to. And we're often very unhappy with the status quo. And so, of course, when January comes around, we're really happy with that, because it gives us the opportunity to start a fresh, brand new year. Let's give it a go. And often, certainly we succeed, but often we don't. And I think that's really the nature of the webinar today. So we spend a lot of time thinking about what we want, but a lot of less time doing it. And as one of the points I want to make is, it's all fine to have goals. So I want to lose weight, I want to get a new career, I want to be the CEO. But those statements themselves are not sufficient to get the goal or to achieve the goal. You have to have an action plan behind the goal. So I think that's one of the key outcomes of successful people. They have a goal, but they have an action plan that actually tells them what that particular goal is and how they will achieve it. And, they've got time frames, the SMART goal approach. And so when that happens, so you're feeling disillusioned, you don't get it, you don't achieve the goal, comes March, we feel really frustrated with ourselves, we start thinking negatively. And when I mean that, I mean, oh, well, I'll never be able to do this. I've tried losing weight for 10 years in a row. It hasn't happened. What's the point? We tell ourselves things won't be different. So often what happens is we feel stuck in old ways and patterns, whether it's from, work situations or home situations. And then ultimately we don't bring about the change that we want. And I'll share something with you which I don't normally share, but I will. So I am an absolute chocoholic. I love chocolate. It's a problem. I don't drink, I don't smoke, but oh my gosh, I love chocolate. So exactly probably like you were doing in December last year, I said, right, I'm going to have my last Mars bar, my Kit Kat, and I really loaded the chocolate and the cookies during December, because that's what you do, right? And I kept on saying to myself, that's it, January the 1st, I'm going to give this a go. And I had a plan what I was going to do. I wrote out what I was going to do. And it was really interesting. On the 9th of January, just automatically, I bought chocolate from Woolworths. And as I'm driving home, I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I've just bought the very thing I said I wouldn't buy. And I felt so frustrated with myself for about 5 minutes. I thought, oh, Karen, you know better than that. Come on. And so what was interesting that I'm trying to say to you is that I've got such an old pattern of doing things around chocolate, like an old habit, that I just do it automatically. Now, what I thought about doing was, oh, what the heck, I'll just eat it. And I thought, no, I'm not going to eat it. I realized that I've actually fallen off the wagon, if you like, because I've actually entertained buying the chocolate and I bought it. But I thought to myself, all right, so you didn't eat it. That's good. That's a good start. Although you did buy it, that's no good. But then I gave the chocolate away. The point that I make with what I'm trying to say is that even if I had eaten a piece of the chocolate, one of the things, people, is not to get disillusioned when you fall off the horse. It's about, okay, well, I didn't do that very well. Right, let me start again from the 9th of January in this particular occasion, and let me keep going. So not to what we call have the global negative thinking, which really is about, well, at the end of the day, I'll never get this right and I'll never be able to change this particular pattern. Actually, I can. So not to see that everything's wrong and I'll never bring about the change because I've fallen off the horse. No, I made a slip up. Right, let me keep going. So positive thinking really is in part what I'm talking to you about. So the solutions to problem one, we want change but don't have a plan. Work out what you did well last year. So I think this is an important point. You know, when we're getting into goal setting, sometimes we don't achieve the future of what we want. But hold on a minute. Let's take a step back and think what we do well. So let's just say that last year you gave up chocolate, or last year you lost 10 kilos and you want to lose another 10 now, this year. Okay, well, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Look at what you have done well. I think it's really important, because otherwise you can just get into this downward spiral of nothing works. Actually, there's lots of things you do in your life that do work. There's lots of things you have achieved that you've done well. So let's celebrate those. Let's look at those. As I said earlier, get familiar with SMART goals, because they have to be part of the formula going forward, and design the plan. And one of the things I always say is that setting goals are not enough. As I said 2 minutes ago, you need an action plan. In other words, I hope I've got as an example of losing weight, but if I haven't in this particular slide, I will come back to it. There it is. I'm going to lose 10 kilograms by March the 10th. Right? So that's my goal. Notice that instead of saying I'm going to lose weight because I feel too fat, I'm specific. 10 kilograms, which is a specific, by March the 10th, which is a time frame. So is it realistic? Yep, it's 2 months away. Yep. Can I lose 10 kilos? Yes, I can. Jenny Craig says 1 kilo a week is probably healthy, so yes, I can do it. Then I'm going to say, right, how am I going to do that? But to say I'm going to lose 10 kilos is not sufficient. So what's the plan? And the plan then is the SMART goals. So I'm going to get a personal trainer, that's specific. I'm going to train 3 times a week, that's specific, and it's measurable and it's achievable. I'm going to consult a nutritionist before February the 10th for advice, and then I will implement changes to the way that I do things. So note that the personal trainer, the 3 times a week, the 1st of February, the nutritionist before February the 10th, are all very specific things that I'm doing to get my goals achieved, as opposed to, I know I want to lose weight. But if you don't have, as I've said, the plan to follow that goal, it's very unlikely that you're going to get there. And the general rule of thumb is this: the more specific the action plan, with how much and what date you're going to do that, and the plan itself, like who you're going to get help from and how, the greater the chance that you will have of achieving your goals. And that's also what the 8% do: specifics, specifics, specifics. And I'll measure each progress, my progress each week, obviously on my scale. Scales don't lie. So if you want to lose 10 kilos, you're able to measure how you're going each week on the same scale at the same time every day. And they generally say first thing in the morning. Same thing could be wanting a new career. Same thing it could be wanting a new job. I'm going to be a manager by December 2019. Where are you now? Think about the steps that you need to take to achieve that by December the 1st, 2019, for argument's sake. And what do you need to do that? So speak to your manager by the 1st of February, go on a course by the 15th of February, finish it by the 30th of April, all those kind of things where you've got a goal in your mind, but chunkable little things that you're going to do along the way to make sure that you get the goal. The second problem often with goals and not achieving the goals is we get despairing, essentially, well, what's the point of trying to set goals because I never stick with them? And that's what I call the total thinking, the negative thinking, where I'll never be able to do this. Of course you can do this. You're quite capable of achieving the goals that you want to. And I think part of achieving goals, and obviously being specific, as I've explained, is to have resilient thinking. If you don't get it right the first time, that's okay. We're human. Get back on that horse and keep going. And some would say, I'll never follow up anyway, so why bother? Well, that's just negative thinking. And at the end of the day, when you think about optimistic thinking and positive thinking, if you've got what's the point of trying to set goals? I'll never get there anyway. I'm useless at these kind of things. Notice the way I'm talking in that regard, negative thinking. If you think that way, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to end up not achieving the goals. There has to be an element of positive thinking in whatever you do. That's really, really important, so that ultimately you give yourself, as I've explained, the greatest chance of success. Another year gone and another year starts, and you think, well, here I am again, and I've done absolutely nothing. And it's possible to do a lot, but it's important to have the plan, as I say. And then you wonder why things aren't different. Some of us even spiral into despair, and I'll tell you a story about that a little bit later on in the webinar. So then what happens is now you're not thinking that you can achieve things, and you're thinking, I'll never be able to get there. So you feel upset with yourself. You get frustrated. Will I ever lose that weight? Will I ever get the job? Maybe I'll just stay in the same job I've been in for 20 years. Even though I hate the job, I don't like my manager, and the people I work with aren't that great. So you start thinking about, well, I might as well just stay where I am because the effort to change is too hard. And I think that's quite an important point. Anything in life worth achieving takes effort, and if you don't put effort into things, you won't really get the rewards out of them. And I think when we talk about behavioral change, and very much so goals are behavioral change, I've got to do different things in order to achieve what I want to. And to do different things means behavioral change. And in order to do that, it takes effort, people. It takes effort to do it, and generally it means that the best people in terms of success, which is one of the things the 8% do, and I'll get onto that in a little while, is they get people to help them. They never go it alone. They get the support, they get the moral encouragement, they get the accolades. So it's about really thinking about setting yourself up for success. Some just give up. I was working with a woman the other day, and I'll just quickly tell you the story. So she says to me she's about 60 kilos overweight, 60 kilograms. Now, 60 kilograms is a lot of weight. My role is never to judge. My role is to help. And I said to her, so what are you wanting to do with that? And she said to me, I'm not going to do anything because there's just no point. I can't lose the weight, and I've just told my doctor that there's no point, even though my doctor says it's really unhealthy. So she's very swollen, her ankles are swollen, she's got knee problems, she's got hip problems. And then I pursued it and I said, so why don't you want to lose the weight? She said, well, I've tried before in the past, and, sort of by February I've given up. Why have you given up? I asked her. She says, because by February the 10th I haven't lost a kilo. So she had started on the 1st of January, and sort of 5 weeks later nothing had changed. And that comes back to what I was talking about, resilient thinking. You can't say, well, there you go, 5 weeks, nothing's changed, and then you go into the despairing cycle. It's tenacity to keep going and keep trying and keep going forward at it. And the result is that I think she's in a very dangerous medical position from her health perspective. She's tired a lot of the time, she's despairing, distressed, and she's just not happy. So there's many things she needs to do, but one of them is behavioral change, and it's hard. So don't give up. You have to keep going regardless of the fact that it can be very difficult. I appreciate that. Solutions to problem 2 is when you're despairing, realize change takes time, which is a point that I think I've just tried to make. It takes commitment. No matter what's going to happen, I'm going to get there. That kind of very resilient thinking, that tenacious approach. And again, as I said, if you fall off that horse, you just get back right on, because nothing's going to change if you don't change the way that you think about the goals that you're trying to achieve. And it happens over a long period of time. Some things take longer. Having a happy marriage might be your goal for the year. Well, you can't say, well, great, it's the 15th of January and now we've got a happy marriage. It takes time, people. What are you going to do differently this year, and how are you going to engage? How are you going to improve the communication in your relationship? What are the fun things that you're going to arrange? And as long as I think you're realistic about goals and how you're going to achieve them, ultimately you'll get there. But I think very often, and particularly in today's world, we often want the quick fix solution, and it generally doesn't happen that way. I always say get a buddy to help you achieve your goal. 2 of you to do it. So, for example, when I started running years ago, and I thought, oh gosh, I've got to get up at 6 in the morning to run. I've been running for most of my life, but I went into a period of just not wanting to do it, and I thought, right, how am I going to do this? So I actually got one of my neighbors to do it with me, and she wasn't really happy about it. Oh my gosh, Karen, have to get up at 6 in the morning. So we got up in the morning, and we actually had this most amazing situation where we just started to love it, because she was always there and I was there. And if I woke up thinking, oh, I don't want to go today, she was there. So I got up because she was waiting. So quite often to have that emotional support and to lean on each other is a really good motivating factor. As I said, if you fall off the wagon, get resilient. It's just a glitch. It's not a train smash or a hurricane. Get back on that wagon. I remember the day I started really enjoying my work with women. I was working with Ash. Ash came to see me. She lacked in confidence at work. She was really quite unhappy. She would get really angry at work and about something, but she wouldn't say anything. So nobody really knew why she was angry. So she used to sulk quite a lot. And when she came to see me, she was really a very unhappy, despairing young woman. And she did nothing about it until she was brave enough to say, right, I'm going to do something about this. My goal is to sort this out and really kind of work out why I get frustrated and learn how to communicate better. She'd get resentful. And then she said, right, I'm out of here. I'm going to look for a new job, even though her job was okay. And she probably could have stayed in the job for a while longer. She wanted a new one. But the problem actually was Ash and the way that Ash was thinking about her life. And so really it was about, was one of the goals to get a new job? Probably. Was one of the goals to learn how to communicate better? Absolutely. Was one of the goals to build her confidence? Certainly. But in order to do that, she had to learn to communicate properly so she gained confidence when she resolved issues with other people over time. But before all of that, she had to learn that she had a problem that was making her unhappy. So she had various kind of things that were going on. And she always said that she lost before she started. All these overwhelming problems I've got, Karen. And actually, they weren't overwhelming people. What she had to do was just list them one by one and to work out, what it is that she needed to do. And when she came to see me, she had about 5 or 6 different problems that she saw as almost insurmountable. They weren't really, but what we did, and I think this is one of the outcomes of the webinar today, is to chunk the goals down. So she, for example, wasn't happy with her work. She didn't like her colleagues. She didn't have confidence. She couldn't communicate well. She wanted a new job. 5 things. So we just did one at a time. And so sometimes goals can seem so overwhelming and insurmountable. What I'm going to ask you to do is think about breaking them down into, if you've got one big goal, break it down into little mini goals, little chunkable areas of each goal that you can achieve. Because sometimes, it's hard to do one big goal and then think, oh my gosh, how am I going to really, achieve this? My son asked me a question the other day, which kind of relates to this. He said, Mum, how do you eat an elephant? And I looked at him and I thought, well, what a strange question. And I said, I have no idea how to eat an elephant. And he said, slowly. And he walked away laughing. And I thought to myself, actually, what he was saying was true. Like, the elephant is generally a huge animal. And sometimes we think we've got huge goals or insurmountable huge problems. And yet when we break them down into little bits and we try and approach them slowly, one at a time, it's all achievable. So actually what he was saying was, whatever goes on in life, don't see it as a big problem, break it down into little bits. And I realized, actually, you know what? Women can achieve anything they want to. Sometimes they just need a little help to change their perspective. And for the men on the line, I realized men can achieve anything they want. Sometimes we all just need a little help to change our perspective. So become one of the 8%. Intrinsic motivation really is, to achieve a goal, you have to want it badly enough. I think this is a really key outcome of the webinar. I always say to somebody, if somebody wants to give up smoking, if they say, oh, look, I'm thinking about giving up smoking, I think it's not good for my health. That's too vague. I'm thinking about it's not good for my health. And if somebody says, I am so determined to give up smoking, I will do anything it takes, that's somebody who's got what I call the burning fire in their belly. If you have a burning fire in your belly to do something badly enough, I honestly believe that nothing is impossible, ladies and gentlemen. You've got to want the goal badly enough, regardless of what it is. So that's the first thing. The 8% have a burning desire to achieve what it is that they want to achieve. Now, there's 2 types of motivation. Number 1 is intrinsic, which comes from within. Intrinsic motivation is propelled from within us. So, for example, it might be, let's use the example again of smoking. I desperately want to give up smoking because it's unhealthy for me and it's costly and it's making me sick. So there's 3 real reasons why I want to give up smoking. But one of them is actually extrinsic, and the extrinsic one is that it's costly. That's something outside of me. But the intrinsic is that it's going to make me sick and I don't like doing this. It's within. So if you have internal motivators that really make you want to give up, my belief is that you've got a greater chance of success as long as you've got the fire burning in your belly. Extrinsic motivation might be, well, I want to become the CEO to get more money so that I can go on holiday more. So those are things that are outside of us, and they're just as important. I'm not suggesting that they're not. And sometimes you've got to have a combination of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation to really achieve the goal. But overall, my belief in working as a psychologist with people around the globe for many, many years is that if you really want a goal badly enough, drive the goal from within. You have to want it badly enough. And I also believe that attitude plays a huge role. I think attitude is 98% of life, ladies and gentlemen. The way that we see life, the way that we look at life, the way that we recover from challenges that come our way, the way that we talk to ourselves when things go wrong. And an example might be, oh my gosh, I pranged into a car yesterday. So somebody who has a negative attitude or an attitude that's more kind of glass half empty would say, there I go again, always pranging into cars, I'm a hopeless driver. Note the negative thinking. Whereas the optimistic person would say, oh my gosh, thank heavens everybody's okay. It was a silly mistake. I really need to try and think more clearly when I'm driving. But I learned from that and it's okay. I'm going to do better in the future. Note those two ways of thinking. One is more negative, glass empty. The other one is more positive, glass full. And essentially we know from a lot of the research is that the glass half full have a much better chance of achieving goals no matter where or how or who they are. So if you think you can, you will. If you think you can't, you've already lost the race. And I think that's a really important point. Okay, so what do the 8% do to achieve their goals? First and foremost, and I'll talk about each of these after this webinar, but after this slide, they begin with the end in mind. What do I really want to achieve? What is it that I'm out to get done? They set specific and challenging SMART goals. And as I said before, learn what SMART goals are, because the SMART goals are the way that you're going to actually achieve the goals that you want. They build a strong support network. So as I said, with my running friend, I got a friend. If you want to stop smoking, get somebody to help you. You know, if you want to change your life and get more confidence, maybe it's about finding a coach. If you're wanting to lose weight, maybe get a buddy to help you with it who also wants to lose weight. But, you know, somebody who's out there who you can talk about, who's really going to support you. And even if they're not doing the same goals that you have, get a friend who's going to say, well done, or somebody's going to make you accountable or responsible and make you recognize your old patterns. So they get support. This is an interesting one. They practice the 52 and 17 rule, which I'll explain to you as I show you the next slide. They do one thing at a time well. So I think particularly women, we tend to run around and try and get 1,010 things done. Focus on one thing at a time. So if you've got 5 goals you want to achieve, just do one. Get the one under control and, you know, sort of feel as if you've got some sense of mastery over that goal, and then go to the next one. But often if you're trying to do 4 or 5 at the same time, you're not paying attention to any one in particular, and you sort of drop between the chairs, as they say. So I think it becomes, you know, a master of one as opposed to attempting to do all at the same time. And that's what people who are on the 8% do. I think this is interesting. They focus by listening to music. Now, this is one of the statistical things that came out of what it is that successful people do when it comes to achieving goals. I find that true in one way, but I also find it quite distracting for me to listen to music when I'm really trying to achieve something. So I think that particular point needs to be something that needs to be for you, you know, to think about, well, will that work for me? And if it does, great. If it doesn't, well, I wouldn't rely too heavily on that. And they track their progress. So, you know, measuring what you're doing. If it's, for example, getting a new job and you set yourself by October, you're in a new job and you're going to try and, you know, put out 2 resumes each week. On Friday, you track how many have I sent, how many responses have I got, how many people have I rung. So you've got a measurement, even, for example, as simply as an Excel spreadsheet. Measure what you're doing so you can track your progress. And essentially what we know is that the more you track your progress, the more encouraged you become to see what you've done and how far you've become, you know. So when we talk about they begin with the end in mind, they know what they want and they write the specifics down, which is what we talked about a little bit earlier. So I talked about the SMART goals, but what we know, interestingly, is that those specific challenging goals, when you've got them really down with a firm action plan, they heighten performance 90% of the time. I thought that was really interesting, and that's the research that was done as recently as 2 years ago. The people who really want the goal to be achieved, as I said, they achieve more with a mentor, coach, buddy. They look for allies to carry them along the way. You know, the greatest accomplishments have not been done individually. It's been done as a team or with people around you. I was watching the tennis last night, and I watched Serena Williams. I don't know if you watched this, but it was really interesting. She came out strongly, and then she sort of faltered a bit. And there was some stage in the game that I thought, it's dicey. She could actually lose this game. And anyway, she came good in the end. But what was interesting, I was watching her, and I was thinking, you know, there's Serena Williams worth $180 million. Yep, I did the net worth on Google. And yet what was interesting watching her is that it's not just Serena on her own. She's got a whole entourage of people, you know, that are actually working on and for and supporting the business called Serena Williams. And that's really what I'm trying to say is get the support, get people to help you, to be responsible and accountable. They practice the 52-17 rule. So research says to do 52 minutes of work and you take 17 minutes rest, done by elite athletes and highly performing people. So think about that, for example, if you're wanting to be more productive at work, that's, for example, your goal. So what you then set yourself is little breaks. I'm going to do 52 minutes of really great work. I'm going to take 17 or 20 minutes break. And in the break, you don't think about work. You go for coffee, you grab a snack, you walk outside the building, and you go back and you go for another 52. So even then, in that particular 52-17 role, there's some sense of concentration and strategy around what you're doing. And this is the research, so I'm presuming it works for the 8%. As I said, they do one thing at a time well. And by doing well, their confidence increases, as well as they have a sense of mastery. Actually, you know, I'm getting really good at this. And so there's, you know, if I'm getting really good at this, then there's other things I could get really good at as well. So in other words, if we get good at one thing, it gives us the kind of encouragement and the confidence to try other things. And so the greater the sense of mastery we have over what we're trying to achieve, the more goals we're actually quite encouraged to do because we know we can do them. And I think there's something really important in that sense of I can do this, that sense of empowerment. And I talked about the music and tracking the progress. So those are really kind of some really interesting insights from people who really get it right all the time. And certainly there's some of them I can learn from here, and I think hopefully so can you. So 7 small things you can do to help you stick with your plan. I think one of the things that comes back to what I said earlier, think about the things that you do well, ladies and gentlemen. Take time to celebrate what you did well last year. Maybe do a list of what are the things I did last year well. Make a list of them. And what are the things that I didn't do well? Make a list of those. And then maybe think, okay, well, the things I didn't do well, how can I turn them and put them into the things I did do well column? And then that becomes the plan that you're wanting to follow. So I think the other thing is to get real. Establish goals, not vague resolutions. So I said, I gave you the example, I want a new job this year. Well, what's the job? I don't know, but I'm sick of the job I'm in. Well, what do you want to do? I'm not sure, but I want to do something in banking. That's too vague. You'll never get the job because you don't know what you want and there's no plan set aside. But if you say, I really want to get into investment banking, I'm going to explore it by the 31st of January, I'm going to make applications by the 15th of February, by the 30th of March, I'm doing a course, and by the 15th of July, I'm looking for another job. I'm going to approach 4 recruiters. Notice the specifics in that, people. There's much more planned little bit chunks of what you're going to do to get the big goal, which is to change your career. An example is I'm going to cut out sugar forever. Oh my gosh, that sounds like me. And that's kind of unrealistic. So what I do is I say, okay, I'm going to eat as little sugar as I can, but what I'm going to rather try and do is replace sugar with veggies. And so I make it more realistic for myself and much more, I guess, intimately, achievable. I anticipate obstacles and how you will work around them. So plan ahead for when you can't go to the gym or you lose motivation temporarily. So you might say, okay, I know that, my track record is by the end of February, I'm losing motivation. So you might say, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a meeting with my mentor or my coach, and I'm going to do it every 3 weeks, and I'm going to include the end of February because I know that's when I tend to dip. Or you might say, well, okay, I know that, I've got to go away for business on the 25th to the 30th of January. To plan ahead, what are you going to do if you can't go to the gym? Well, you might say, okay, I'm going to take my runners and I'm going to go for a walk. On the days that I would be at the gym, I'm going to continue with my plan of exercise, and instead of going to the gym, I'll walk. So you substitute the plan with something that's quite realistic and just as good or almost as good as what you normally do. But you're not just saying, or you might choose to say, well, in that week, I'm going to rest. Now, if you choose to rest, that's fine, because strategically you're thinking, okay, I'll need a break by then, but be careful not to get into I'll just stay on the rest for the rest of the year, right? You get back on the horse, as I was saying earlier. Enlist friends and family so they can support you. I said that earlier, and I found that very, very helpful. I had an example about 6 years ago. I wanted to lose 10 kilos, and I actually got my family to help me. I did go on Weight Watchers, and I did lose the weight. And I think what was interesting around that was I actually got into the pattern of eating differently and eating more healthily. And I've never actually put the weight on. But still today, my children will say, Mom, you've got to stop eating the ice cream. And I'll say, no, it's okay, I can do it because, I went for a run this morning. Or the fact is that part of changing habits is to think about things differently. And if I did do something that I wasn't supposed to, I said to myself, well, you know what, I really enjoyed that. It's okay, Karen, and I'm going to just start again tomorrow. So not be too harsh on yourself. As I said, track the progress. Seeing is believing. And the more you track what you're doing well and you go back to the goals you set and tick, 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 yes, I achieved that, the better off you feel about yourself and the goals. And celebrate along the way. Now, for example, if one of your goals is to save money each month this year, then don't go off and spend a whole heap of money to celebrate, because that's going against the goal that you're trying to achieve. That might be, okay, I'm going to go and, spend a day on the beach, or I'm going to go and have a massage. So as you go through the goals and actually see that you're achieving things, have a little time to celebrate, because you know what, you really, really deserve it. You've tried hard and you deserve to celebrate what you've done well. Ali, I worked with Ali. Quickly tell you the story of Ali. Ali wanted to lose 20 kilos. She wanted to give up smoking. She wanted to leave her job and find a more rewarding career. So when she came to see me, she was young. Ali was 28, I think. And she said to me she'd tried all this before. She can't give up, smoking, and she really likes it. And she wanted to lose the weight, but she's tried so many times and couldn't. Her ankles were caving in, and she hated her job. So notice she's got three things: weight, getting fit, not smoking, and working. So what we did was I said, okay, let's start from the most important, and the most important for her was the weight loss. So we started with the weight loss. And I did some intrinsic motivation. So why do you want to lose the weight? I hate the way I look, which is intrinsic. I hate the fact that I'm always slow and puffing, intrinsic. I hate the fact that I always feel unwell when I'm smoking, and it's just horrible, intrinsic. So what would be other extrinsic motivations? Well, it's expensive. I don't think it's really great for a girl to be smoking, or anybody. It doesn't look good, extrinsic. And ultimately, it's not really how I saw my life. Okay, so what we then did was we did the patches. She went to an acupuncturist. We talked about, some of the strategies she put in place. So she did a whole range of different things to stop the smoking, which she eventually actually did. The first time she tried, she went well in January and February. March, she broke down and she had a few cigarettes. And then she got into I hate myself, I'll never get this right, I'll always be a smoker. At which stage I said, stop, Ali. You fell off the wagon, let's get back on. Let's go back to what you said you would do. So we started all over again. And of course, I was encouraging her friends were encouraging her. And eventually, that was about 3 years ago, she hasn't smoked again. So it's about going back and, the resilient thinking and keep trying. She had a very firm plan. We did a similar thing with, her weight, and we did a similar thing with her job. So her job was, she was actually in customer service. She hated it. So we worked out what she had to do graphic design. She went on the internet and found a college. She realized she had to study, so she studied at night. She enrolled in a program. She then went to classes. She did an internship with a graphic design studio, even though she was still working. She took 1 day off a week and reduced her pay. So she slowly transitioned into graphic design, and she's doing a great job actually now. She's full-time in graphic design and loving her life. So in a 3-year period, okay, it was tough at times for her. It wasn't always easy, but she's changed things that she really wanted to change. And I saw her probably November last year, and I couldn't believe how different she was. So with Ali's story, you can do anything you want to do if you really want to do it badly enough. So even for the gentleman on the line, the Empowering Women program takes you from this to this. So it's really about thinking about what you really want to do, and to encourage you to go out there and, carve the life that you want to carve, whatever it is. And for a specific note to women who are on the line, and there's a lot of you, I think when we talk about the gender inequality, and I don't want to go too deeply into that, but the fact is that we are paid 17.3% less than men are. We are, in terms of significant leadership positions, there are 0.9% of women in international positions against, many other males who are in jobs. We are disadvantaged in many ways. Domestic violence is really unabated. And so I think whilst we've got a lot of these opportunities to do different things, and the government is throwing a lot of money, and many organizations are actually throwing money at empowering women, I think that actually we as women need to do a lot of things to actually start taking control of our lives. There's 2 things I wanted to show you today, really. One was an online program. Now, I know some of you are on it. I actually wrote this program in response to a very tragic situation where a woman lost her life. But this program really, it's an online program, and it is for women around the world, so personal empowerment. Your story, you really matter. The 3rd stage is trust, love, and safety. The 4th is women in business, managing stress as a woman. 6 is communicating assertively and confidently. 7 is you, the emotionally intelligent woman. 8 is real resilience, and 9 is goal setting. So the program was, as I say, launched in June, and about 4,000 women are on the program. This is a little bit about it. We've actually just in the process of changing stage 1. So stage 1, it will now be when you go on for stage 1 is free. You will get 5 emails over 5 days introducing you to the program. So if you wait for a week or 2, you will actually be able to see the new online stage 1. But if you write it down, that's the www.empoweringwomentothrive.com. And if you use the B/Thrive, you will get a reduced price of $197. And it's about 40 hours of empowerment online. So pretty good price for women around the world. One woman at a time, I say. Moving forward, I talked about that. We run a program, as I said earlier, it's a 12-stage program for women in organizations. It's not for leaders only. It's for women down the line, where we teach them about resilience, how to communicate, how to be emotionally intelligent in meetings. Essentially, it's basically about helping women thrive. We obviously do coaching, retreats, as I said earlier, and these are some areas where you can actually follow us. The website is www.karenwalsh.com.au. Some of you have been on it, some of you may not have, so that's all about the women's stuff we're doing. Lots of blogs on there, ladies, if you're on the line still, about empowerment, about resilience, about managing stress. There will be about 30 blogs and articles on that website. And if you're interested in leadership and team development, if you go to the Pure Magic website, lots and lots of blogs, probably 30 blogs as well. Talks a lot about leadership and people development and team development overall. So lots of stuff for you to read about and catch up on, lots of things that you can do. What I always like to do is to offer people who would like it. It's the start of a new year. If you want to bounce your plans off somebody, this is what you can do, is to book a time on this particular link. Now, I will ask MJ, who works with me, to send you the link after this webinar. It's a 30-minute conversation. You're very welcome to come on free of charge if you would like to. Just talk to me about your plans or share something with me or anything you'd like, be it personally or organizationally. And you can book yourself 30 minutes in that if you would like. And I will ask MJ to send this to you after we have finished the webinar. So it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today. Are there any questions that any of you have of me, or anything you'd like me to talk about whilst I'm on this line? We've got 8 minutes left, so good timing, and I would love to hear from any of you. So does anybody have any question for me whatsoever? I'm here waiting to take it. Okay, so I have a question here around how do you keep motivated? One of the things I think is really important is, what I think works is, for example, if I start something in January, February, March, let's just say that you're getting really weary about something, you're feeling tired of sort of pursuing this goal. I think it's absolutely fine to take a bit of time out. Take a week, take 2 weeks, and just breathe a bit. You know, whether that's wanting to find a new career, whether that's working on your relationship, whether that's wanting to stop smoking, losing weight, just sometimes take a bit of a break out of life for a bit. Go away for a weekend. Just kind of give yourself the time to just, take in what you're doing, just to have a little bit of a breather is what I'm saying, and to just take a bit of a rest. And okay, then you come back and, okay, I've committed to this, so I'm going to keep trying, and then you get back on track. I think that that's absolutely fine. I guess the most important thing is that it's important to get back on track. So don't just stay on holiday, right? Good question here from Anne. Easy to say change your intrinsic motivation. How do you do that? I don't think it's really about changing your intrinsic motivation, Anne. I think it's more about understanding your intrinsic motivation. In other words, it is, so what do I really want to achieve? So what is it about this goal that is actually personally affecting me? So if we come back to the example of smoking, some people might say, well, look, it's really unhealthy, it's really costly, it looks yucky, so I'll give it away. But what I want you to do then is, okay, let's just go a little bit deeper than that. So for me as a woman, for me as a person, me as a human being, why do I really want to give this away? Ask yourself that question. Why I, and why do I want to change this? So you might come up with, I really want to give this away because I actually feel that it's costing me my health. How is it costing me my health? Well, I've noticed that I'm out of puff a lot of the time, and it's concerning me. I've noticed that I wake up and I'm coughing a lot, and I'm really upset about that. So I think it's about how I really am affected by this thing that I'm wanting to change. So I think it's not really about changing the intrinsic motivation so much, Anne. I think it's about understanding what it is really, really deep down within your soul, if you want another description, as to why you want this goal badly enough. And I can tell you honestly that if you're able to tap into that true, in-depth reason why this goal is so important to you, my experience over many years of working with people and even my own goals is that you will generally achieve that goal. But often if you don't get in tap with what it is really about for you individually and personally, often then that's why we don't attribute as much value to it as we could if we really understand what's that deep burning within our soul to give it away. Does that make sense? The other thing, what you could do is go on the internet and become knowledgeable about intrinsic motivation. What is it? How do you do it? How do you get in touch with that? Part of that could be, really understanding what your values are, what are the things that are important to you in life, but that's a whole exercise in its own way. I would get knowledgeable about intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation, also how to motivate other people. For example, if you're on the line and you're a leader and you're wanting to motivate your team, how do you do that? What are the things you need to do to motivate them? Because just remember is that not everybody is motivated by money. I think it's a really important point. Very often people are motivated by other things like what? Status, promotion, being seen to be valuable, feeling good about themselves. So I think quite often in leadership, we often think people want to be promoted because of this, but we don't always know that. So motivation is a really interesting topic if you learn more about it, both, motivating others, as I said, if you're in a leadership role, or indeed motivating yourself. So thank you for that question, Anne. I think it was a really great one. So I've really enjoyed speaking with you all today. I thank you so much for your time, and I really hope to see you in our, on our monthly webinars throughout the year. Please feel free to contact me at any time. You know where I am. For those of you who are new, now you know where I am. And for those of you who have met before, please come back, and I always love to stay in touch with you all. So have a fantastic 2019. Stay strong, stay well, and stay happy. So until I see you or speak to you again, God bless. Take care.